Hello Isabelle, it's good to speak to you again. Thank you for joining us here.
Thanks for having me.
You're with CropLife International. Can we ask you about the work programme for agriculture and how that's faring in the negotiations at the moment?
Yes, of course. So CropLife International is actually part of a broader coalition called Farming First that brings together farmers, scientists, business and industry, as well as some of the leading think tanks and agricultural development agencies around the world around a policy platform for agriculture. And we've been following very closely the negotiations here because we think that agriculture should be key in those discussions. Climate change will affect farmers tremendously, and yet agriculture so far has only played a very small role. So about a year and a half ago, there was an effort by a number of parties to move forward and ask for a work program to be adopted under the convention. This would basically see parties coming together and trying to understand better what we don't know about agriculture, what do we need to look at, and possibly do some further research so that we can really integrate agriculture in these negotiations. There was a lot of consensus around this when we started the year, and I think there's still a lot of support for it. But the recent rejig of the text has led to agriculture being linked to other issues, which are much more technical and much more contentious. So we're very worried that not for lack of support, but for essentially procedural reasons, the agricultural work program could be left behind. There has also been quite a lot of talk about whether we should go forward with just an agricultural work program if other things don't go forward. And I feel really strongly that this is essential. This is not about making a decision or having a global deal on climate change. This is about moving progress so that next year in Durban, we can really understand what the issues are in agriculture and how are we going to tackle them and how does it link to all these other issues we're discussing here, like REDD and deforestation.
The thing is that people are saying that you can't disentangle all these issues. For example, you can't get an agreement on REDD because of the mitigation targets. I mean, and agriculture faces very much the same thing because you're not going to be able to extract it. Or can you see a way that you can extract it?
Well, I totally agree. I think this is a very complex issue and everything is linked in some ways. The key thing about agriculture right now is that actually we don't know enough. We need to know more, and we need to have some form of consensus around some key issues. For example, there isn't a lot of consensus about how do you measure carbon sequestration in soil in agricultural land. The work program could, it's not guaranteed, we don't know yet, but this is something they could look at. So then next year we would have more information and we'll be able to make a better informed decision. So actually the work program in some ways kind of stands outside of the broader issues because it's about moving knowledge forward and enabling decision makers to know enough to make informed decisions. So we could have a work program. We don't necessarily have a decision on REDD or other things because actually it's not about establishing a fund, it's not about establishing a new mechanism. It's a very separate type of effort there. It's basically agreeing that we need more work. And I think most people here understand that we need more work.
So what would take this forward a step? What decisions would have to happen?
Well, I think it would be very helpful if there could be a recognition of the very strong importance of this and understanding that although there might be many issues of substance around us that we don't agree upon, reverting to a structure or to the same kind of approach that was here until we got to Cancun, where the decision on agriculture was really a standalone decision that just mandated a work program to be adopted, that would be very helpful. Currently, the work program is bundled together on a decision with bunker fuels. So bunker fuels are fuels from aviation, for example, which is a very difficult decision, very contentious decision. So being able to move the text from agriculture away from this and revert it to what it was before, which was a standalone document, that would be extremely helpful because I think people will understand that it's valuable, but right now it's stuck in these procedural difficulties. People don't want a decision on bunker fuels. There's too many issues remaining on this. And so the maturity of the agricultural work program is a mismatch for the maturity of the discussions on bunker fuels.
So how do you actually accomplish that? I completely see what you're saying, but what's the next step?
Well, I think the next step is probably happening right now. I understand that parties have been meeting and trying to agree that a redraft of the current negotiating text, there will be probably a few more versions before we have decisions, could have this happen. Certainly, I think if there was a leading group of countries that wanted to take that on, it would be helpful. Some countries have seen it as not as much of a priority. I think it would be essential for people to understand that bear the disagreements on other issues with other countries. This is something that is going to hurt everybody and benefit no one if that doesn't go through. There is not one country here that doesn't have agriculture as an important sector. Let's remember that agriculture is one of the key drivers for poverty reduction. Farmers will be some of the most affected people in the world by climate change. They're already struggling today. I mean, we're talking about increasing food prices. Really, there is no benefit to anyone in holding this back. I think it's very much about political will.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. I wish you very good luck with it.
Thanks a lot for having me.